In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the drive belt on a S130. So I got it jacked up here. Preferably, you want to keep the wheels as straight as possible. I'm going to use my DCF 901, little subcompact impact, to make this job a lot easier. 16 millimeters, what you need to take the clutch and crank pulley off. And then you'll need a 3/4 or 19 millimeter to take the steering gear off. And then you're going to need a 15 millimeter to take the belt idlers off. I have the e-brake down to give me some slack for when you go to do that. But I'm going to show you the hardest part of this job. See, I got plenty of slack there. Hardest part of this entire job is taking out the belt guide that's on the transmission. It's kind of to help keep the belt on the transmission pulley there. And I'm trying to get my light. It's really hard to kind of get to. It takes a 15 millimeter wrench, and you can also put an Allen on the top, but sometimes that's pretty hard because it's clogged up with dirt. But I'm going to show you an easy way to access that. If you'll pop this cover off the right fender, it's got these little tabs underneath there, and they'll have to be spread out. See that tab? There's one on each side of that cup holder. You'll need to spread them out to get it to lift it up, and then on the front of this piece is just a little tab. So I'm going to pop that off, and then that'll give us a lot better look and access to that stud. So pop it off, and let me break out my light here, and I'm going to show you that stud. And it's probably better to do this part with the belt tight. I have it loose right now. But the problem is it's really difficult to get in there, even though it makes this a lot easier to see it, which makes the whole process easier, but it's still difficult to get to. So let's move on. Let's take the clutch off. If you got a clutch that's an electric clutch like this one, just be careful to remove this wiring harness first. You don't want to drop that thing down and then break your wiring harness. And it's just got a little tab here that pulls up. And then once you have that pulled up, you can pull it, just wiggle it on off of there. See how I got this? I'm just going to pull it up right there and wiggle it out, wiggle it off, and then take your impact, 16 millimeter, remove that clutch. And as you remove this, it's going to drop down. It's going to hit that silver bar, steering tie rod end, I'm not sure, right there. So it's right there is on the clutch stop bracket, and you have to spin it around to clear that bar, then let it drop on down. Now you can see there's that bar I'm talking about. Take this off of the crank pulley to give you a little bit of slack, because if you don't, you won't have enough room to get it off the transmission. Now I'm going to use my 3/4 inch, slip this steering gear off, and this is why I say keep those wheels straight, and it'll make putting this back on a lot easier. So slip that off and then push this steering up. Those are little plastic bushings in there. You'll pull the steering wheel straight up like that. So now it's time to take our 15 millimeter, remove the idlers. Nice and easy. You got one flat idler and one V-grooved idler for the belt. Now's the fun part. Got a long wrench here. It'd be better if you had like a little short one or a special one, or if you can clean out the top of that stud and get an Allen wrench in there. I don't know what size Allen it is, but it'll take quite a bit of time. It's just a little difficult to get to, but this is what it's going to look like once you get it out of there. It feels like the threads are a lot longer, but it's not that long, but because you can't get to it and you're having to just do short strokes, it takes forever. So now let's take that belt out. It's real easy at this point. I accidentally left the belt around the crank pulley. I realized I don't have enough room. Don't do like me. I realize, oh, got to slip it past the crank, pull it on out of there. Comes out nice and easy. Now we're going to look up on Deere.com. We're going to find our belt. That's why we're replacing it. That one's got a cut in it. So Deere.com, break down all the parts you need. This one had a sub. We didn't have the main one, but you see how I circled that sub number there? That was our sub part. So that's what I ended up using. Now we're going to feed our belt back through there, put it around the transmission first, and then put it up around the, slip it on over to the crank pulley. And then we'll go ahead and, I didn't listen to my own advice. I made a mistake here. And I realized I need to put it around the transmission first, then the crank pulley, and then do our idlers. And now you go to slip the clutch back in there, put the belt around the grooves, and be careful not to get that belt caught up on the guides that are built into the frame. And so line up that keyway on that shaft with the clutch. And once I get over that bar, now I'm trying to line it up with that clutch stop. And just be real careful. You got to watch the belt. And then once you got everything in place, get several threads on your bolt before you start to impact it into place. Make sure everything's straight. Make sure the belt's not caught up in that those belt guides, because then you can just ruin it right away. So just check that, see how the belts go inside of those. It can easily get caught up or on the outside of one of those if you're not careful. All right, next up is now we can you can either go ahead. Really no order you have to do this in at this point. I'm going to go ahead and just do the steering, put the steering down, take this gear, and sometimes you'll have to wiggle the steering shaft or the wheels a little bit. You want to try to get the steering wheels as straight as possible with the wheels. Real quick, I'm going to show you this nut is actually a top locking nut. It's not like a nylon insert. It's better than that. It's top locking. So you see how it's kind of tapered right there? So that goes towards the bottom. So once you get your gear on there, that takes, like I said, it's a 3/4 or 19 millimeter. Tighten that on up. Then put your idlers on there. Make sure you got your flat one up front and your V-groove on the back. And then it's time to put that stud back in on that transmission at the rear. And that's not fun at all. I would recommend when you do that, release the e-brake, and you'll see what's going to happen here when the belt gets tight. I'm going to release the e-brake, and it's going to tighten up this belt, and then that way I don't have the belt in my way as much when I go to put that transmission stud, belt retainer stud, belt guide in there. Camera upside down for a moment. Let's flip it back over. Sorry about that. So there it is, got it started, got it down in there. Now all we have to do is pop this back in. Super simple. It's a time-consuming job, not too difficult, just those tools that you need. And then just, like I said, just double check, make sure everything's good, plug up your harness, crank it up, and hope this video helps you guys out. Hope you'll like and subscribe, and I'll have more like this coming soon.